Carl Williams, Melbourne's most infamous criminal. Carl Williams remains one of Australia's most notorious underworld figures, whose violent ambition and strategic brutality shaped Melbourne's gangland war between 1998 and 2006. But to reduce his life to headlines about crime and vengeance alone would be a disservice. His story exposes a far more complex tapestry of social struggle, police challenges, media influence, and ethical dilemmas in the criminal justice system. This documentary critically examines Carl's rise and fall while exploring the broader systemic failures that facilitated his criminal empire. Through careful analysis, we will look beyond sensationalism to understand how institutional corruption, media narratives, and prison management intertwined with the deadly conflict Carl helped ignite. Born on October 13, 1970, in the working-class suburb of Broadmeadows, Melbourne, Carl Anthony Williams grew up in a modest household alongside his parents, George and Barbara, and older brother Shane. His upbringing was typical of many Australian youths from disadvantaged suburbs: limited economic opportunities, early school leaving, and the struggle to find a stable livelihood. Carl left school after year 11 and tried to establish a legitimate clothing business with his wife, Roberta Mercica. However, the business ultimately failed, and faced with mounting financial pressure, Carl turned toward the illicit drug trade, which was rapidly growing in Melbourne's outer suburbs during the late 1990s. The methamphetamine market in Victoria was expanding quickly, driven by social factors such as unemployment, economic disenfranchisement, and demand for easy money. Carl's involvement was emblematic of this shift, reflecting how socio-economic marginalization pushed many toward criminal networks. In 1999, police raided an amphetamine manufacturing lab in Broadmeadows, seizing over 25,000 methamphetamine pills. Both Carl and his father, George, were charged with drug offenses. This raid marked a critical turning point in Carl's criminal career. It was his formal introduction to the serious, organized drug trade in Victoria. The involvement of Carl's family in the operation highlights how criminal enterprises often operate through tight-knit personal networks, blurring lines between familial loyalty and illicit activity. The raid disrupted Carl's early operations but did not deter his ambitions. Instead, it propelled him deeper into the underworld. October 13, 1999, Carl's 29th birthday, marked a pivotal moment in Melbourne's criminal underworld. Jason Moran, a rival gang figure from the Moran family faction, shot Carl in the stomach. Though the shooting reportedly stemmed from a drug debt dispute, it symbolized a far more profound power struggle brewing beneath the surface. Carl survived, but the attack ignited a bitter vendetta against the Moran faction. This personal betrayal escalated into a broader gangland war characterized by targeted assassinations, shifting alliances, and an ongoing cycle of retaliatory violence. The shooting was a catalyst transforming Carl from a local drug dealer into a key orchestrator of Melbourne's most violent criminal conflict in decades. Carl distinguished himself from other criminals through his strategic approach to violence. Unlike many who resorted to direct confrontation, Carl preferred to operate behind the scenes, organizing contract killings executed by trusted associates. This delegation insulated him from direct criminal liability and complicated police investigations. His network included bikies, former associates, and low-level criminals willing to perform hits for significant sums, typically between $50,000 and $150,000 depending on the target. The Gangland War, lasting roughly from 1998 to 2006, left at least 36 people dead. It was a battle for control over Melbourne's drug market, power, and reputation, driven by cycles of revenge and volatile alliances. Throughout the Gangland War, media outlets such as the Herald Sun and Daily Mail played a central role in framing public perception of Carl. They portrayed him as a ruthless kingpin and criminal mastermind, often emphasizing his notoriety and violent acts. While grounded in factual events, these portrayals sometimes glamorized his criminal lifestyle and oversimplified the complex social and institutional factors at play. The media's focus on personalities and sensational violence risked overshadowing systemic issues such as social inequality, policing failures, and the consequences of drug prohibition policies. The Melbourne Gangland War claimed dozens of lives, but a few killings stood out for their brutality, timing, and the message they sent. In June 2000, Mark Moran, a key figure in the Moran crime family, was gunned down outside his home in Aberfeldy. Although Carl Williams was never formally charged, police believed he orchestrated the hit. The death was a devastating blow to the Moran faction and marked the beginning of a bloody power shift. 3 years later, in June 2003, Mark's brother Jason Moran was murdered in broad daylight, sitting in a van at a junior football game with his associate Pasquale Barbaro. The attack was bold, even reckless, unfolding in front of children and parents. It was a turning point. Violence wasn't just between rivals anymore, it was spilling into public life. In March 2004, their father Louis Moran, the aging patriarch of the family, was shot dead inside a Brunswick pub. The hitmen were allegedly acting on Carl's orders. With Louis gone, the Moran family's grip on Melbourne's underworld was all but broken. But the killings didn't stop with rivals. Later in 2003, Michael Marshall, a known drug dealer, was shot outside his South Yarra home. His mistake? Reportedly withholding drug profits, a fatal misstep in Carl's empire. That same year, Mark Malaya, a low-level associate, was found in a burnt-out car. Police believed he'd been killed for disloyalty, possibly for cooperating with authorities. His charred remains served as a brutal warning to anyone thinking of crossing Carl. Even from behind bars, the violence continued. In 2006, Mario Condello, a senior member of the Carlton crew and a former criminal defense lawyer, was shot dead outside his Brighton home. At the time, Carl Williams was already in custody, awaiting trial for conspiring to have Condello killed. Despite Carl's imprisonment, police suspected his associates carried out the murder. It was a chilling sign that Carl's influence extended beyond prison walls, and that unfinished business was still being settled. Each of these murders consolidated Carl's power, but the ruthless purges also exposed the fragile and volatile nature of criminal alliances, as well as the extreme human cost of the Gangland War. The Gangland War revealed serious ethical and operational problems within Victoria Police. Corruption investigations uncovered officers' involvement in illicit activities, and the police's secret use of Nicola Gobo, a criminal defense lawyer, as an informant breached legal ethics and client confidentiality. Gobo's cooperation with police led to the Royal Commission into the Management of Police Informants, exposing how law enforcement compromised trials and public trust in the justice system. Carl's own role as a police informant while imprisoned further complicated matters. Providing detailed information on unsolved murders, including those of police informants Terence and Christine Hodson, Carl's cooperation helped law enforcement but branded him a traitor in the criminal world, ultimately sealing his fate. These developments highlight the moral complexity of using criminal informants, balancing the pursuit of justice with the risks of ethical breaches and the dangers posed to informants themselves. After his arrest and conviction in 2007, Carl was transferred to HM Prison Bar 1, Victoria's maximum security prison, known for housing some of the state's most dangerous and high-profile offenders. He was placed in the Acacia Unit, a specialized wing designed for inmates classified as high-risk or vulnerable, including informants and those at threat from other prisoners. Despite its reputation for strict security and segregation, the Acacia Unit was fraught with challenges. Inmates housed there included violent offenders and gang members who held rigid criminal codes, particularly an intense disdain for those who cooperated with police, commonly referred to as snitches. Carl, who had begun providing Victoria Police with valuable information on unsolved murders and criminal networks, quickly became one of the most notorious informants within the prison system. Prison authorities faced a difficult dilemma. Carl was a significant intelligence asset whose testimony could help solve cold cases and bring other criminals to justice. Yet, housing him safely was an immense challenge given the potential for violent reprisals. The decision to place him alongside inmates like Matthew Charles Johnson, a notorious career criminal and self-appointed leader of the prison gang known as the Prisoners of War, proved catastrophic. Johnson was infamous within the prison system for his violent enforcement of the code against informants. Known for his brutality, he was described by some guards and inmates as a dangerous and unpredictable figure. His presence in the same unit as Carl was widely questioned both before and after the fatal attack. On April 19, 2010, during a period when prison officers were momentarily inattentive, Johnson brutally attacked Carl with the stem of an exercise bike, repeatedly striking him in the head. Surveillance footage captured the savage assault in chilling detail, showing the prolonged nature of the attack and the lack of immediate intervention. Despite the presence of multiple cameras, the response by prison staff was delayed, raising serious questions about prison management and protocols for protecting vulnerable inmates. Carl sustained catastrophic head injuries and was pronounced dead shortly afterward. He was just 39 years old. The incident shocked the Victorian public and ignited widespread outrage over the safety and management of high-risk prisoners. Many questioned how a man as high-profile and at risk as Carl could be placed in such a dangerous environment without adequate safeguards. Subsequent investigations revealed systemic failures in communication, risk assessment, and staff training within the prison system. Carl's family, particularly his daughter Dakota, publicly criticized the government, accusing it of negligence and a failure to uphold its duty of care. They argued that while the authorities profited from his cooperation through improved conditions and financial support, they ultimately failed to protect him from foreseeable harm. The aftermath of Carl's murder led to multiple inquiries and reviews within Victoria's corrections system. These investigations highlighted not only individual errors but also broader institutional shortcomings, including overcrowding, understaffing, and inadequate prisoner segregation policies. Furthermore, Carl's death disrupted several critical criminal investigations. As a key informant, his knowledge and testimony had been expected to play a pivotal role in prosecuting other organized crime figures and resolving unsolved murders. With his passing, many of these cases lost their strongest witness, potentially allowing other criminals to evade justice. In the broader context, Carl's violent death behind bars underscored the precarious balance correctional authorities must maintain when managing informants, balancing intelligence gathering with the moral and legal obligation to ensure prisoner safety. His murder remains a stark reminder of the human cost of these competing interests. The story of Carl Williams is often framed narrowly as a criminal who met a violent end due to his own choices. But his life and death offer a broader lens on social marginalization, media responsibility, police ethics, and the complexities of justice in confronting organized crime. The gangland war exposed systemic weaknesses, corrupt law enforcement, sensationalist media, and flawed prison policies that contributed to cycles of violence and injustice. The use of informants like Gobo and Carl themselves underscore the precarious balance law enforcement faces between intelligence gathering and ethical boundaries. His death behind bars stands as a stark warning about institutional failures and the human costs of neglect. The rise and fall of Carl Williams defies simple narratives of heroism or villainy. His life challenges us to confront uncomfortable questions about how society responds to crime, the role of media in shaping perceptions, and the ethical dilemmas faced by law enforcement. Through a critical examination of these intertwined forces, we gain insight into the complexities that underlie Melbourne's gangland war and ongoing struggles with organized crime.